Welcome back to Movie Summary. Today we are diving into a film called Only Mine, based on a true story. The movie begins with a girl running in the woods as gunshots keeps coming from behind. Her name is Julie. One of the shots ends up hitting her in the head and she collapses. We then jump back to the past. Julie is home checking submissions for college. She then realizes she is late. She hurries out. While driving, a cop pulls her over. His name is David. He is the new police recruit. He informs her she was speeding and talking on the phone. She tells him she was hurrying to go to work at the diner down the street. David then says her name and she wonders how he got her name. But David has been nice and lets her go. The happy Julie then arrives to work. Hours later, while at work, Tommy the cook invites her out. But she has something else planned already. At this moment, David walks into the diner. Julie is shocked but also mesmerized. Tommy notices it. Julie then asks David if he needs someone to show him around the town. David asks if she is inviting him to a date and she tells him the date and time. Days later, the date arrives and David surprises her with a cute little gift, a statue. At the bar, Tommy notices them and gets a little sad. David sees him too. He immediately asks Julie if she liked him, but she says of course not. He then tells her he is getting feelings for her and wants it to be right because his last relationship was messed up. Both then kiss. Weeks go by and Julie introduces David to her mother. She is happy her daughter has found someone great. The following day, David drives Julie to his house in the woods. The next day, Tommy invites Julie to hang out as friends. Days later, Julie comes back home and is shocked as David is sitting in her house. She wonders how he got in. He stands up and wants to talk about Tommy. He feels something off about him and tells her to keep an eye on him. Later that night, Julie goes to babysit her best friend Suzanne's daughter Kinsey. Hours later, David knocks heavily on the door. Julie is shocked, wondering what is he doing here. He is mad that she wasn't picking up her phone when he was calling. This wakes up Kinsey. She just tells David that her phone ringer was off. That's not a crime. But David tells her, "I always want to be able to find you." Suzanne then comes back home and David wants her to leave them. Feeling how agitated David is, Julie asks him to leave, that they can talk later somewhere else, not here. He then leaves. The next day, Suzanne calls Julie warning her about David. After the call, Julie feels something is off in the house. She steps in the backyard and David is there. He wants to explain what happened the other night. He wants to start over, but Julie isn't comfortable with him here. He grabs a gardening tool while continuing talking and that really scares Julie. Moments later, she goes to her mom in panic explaining what just happened. The mom immediately calls the police. Hours later, David has been questioning by his superior about the incident. This really infuriates him. The next day, Julie goes to pick up Kinsey at school. When she gets there, they tell her someone already picked her up. So she runs outside looking for the girl, until she finds her. She is standing with David. Julie is horrified. David confronts her saying she is spreading rumors about him when he hasn't done anything. She runs from him. David's superior Dodd shows up and she tells him to tell David to leave her alone. So Dodd goes to confront David and tells him that whatever he had with this girl is gone, to stay away from her. That same night, Julie closes the diner and leaves. As she drive away, she sees David standing there putting his black gloves on. He is pissed that she keeps ignoring him. He just wants to be with her. It's driving him crazy. She doesn't say a word and leaves. Minutes later, she tells it to her mom, who calls Dodd all angry. But Dodd tells her that David says he wasn't there. The poor Julie starts crying. Days go by and Julie becomes paranoid. One day, she receives an email from the university she was applying confirming her withdrawal. She is shocked and calls them that she never did that someone must have hacked in her email. At this moment, she gets dozens of emails saying, "I'm not going anywhere." Julie then goes to work and Gail comes in, the reception at the police station. She is mad at Julie, thinking she is creating all these stories about David. She tells her to keep her mouth shut. Minutes later, Tommy takes Julie aside and offers her a gun to protect herself as he feels someone may be after her. But she refuses. She immediately calls the DMV and gets informations on Ashley, David's ex-girlfriend. She goes to her house and asks about David, but Ashley closes on her. On her way back, a car starts following her. The car blocks the way and Julie ends up on a side of the road. David then comes out of that car and points a gun at her. Once she went to see Ashley, this triggered him. He then takes her in his car and drives away. On the way, she sees two guys and articulate the word "help me." An hour later, David brings her to a space. He admits that's where he was planning on asking her to marry him. David then starts going on a huge monologue about his feelings. Julie takes this opportunity to run away. He follows her and shoots at her many times. This is the scene from the beginning of the film where he shoots her and she collapses. He then comes to her and realizes she is dead. Hours go by and Julie opens her eyes. Meanwhile, the police has been alerted about Julie's disappearance. Agent Miller is brought to help investigate. The whole time, Gail keeps looking at David. Learning about the history between David and Julie, Miller reminds Dodd if he ends being to blame, this will affect Dodd. On the other side, deep in the forest, Julie is slowly trying to move. She sees a group of hunters but unfortunately is unable to scream for help. The next day, David wakes up from a nightmare. Gail tries to calm him down. He tells her all he wants to do is make Dodd proud, as he was a friend of his father. Gail then starts asking him questions on where was he the night where she had to lie he was with her. He tells her he was buying some presents for her. Hours later, Julie's mom comes back and tells Miller her daughter is alive. She felt and heard her voice. David hears that and immediately drives to the location he left Julie. He arrives and doesn't see her. He screams out loud, "I will find you." He then goes back to his car and finds Miller, who wonders what is he doing here. Miller tells him to go back to the station, he got this area covered. Meanwhile, the two guys who saw Julia asking for help go to the police to let them know. So Dodd goes to David's house but he isn't there. David is now officially missing. Miller heads to question Ashley. She tells him about David's cabin in the forest. That same night, David hears a noise in his cabin. Someone then turns off the light and stabs him with the gardener tool he threatened Julie in the beginning with. At this moment, Dodd arrives outside and wants David to come with him. But David shoots him right away. Once back inside, Julie stabs him. He tells her, "As long as I live I will never stop," so she stabs him in the chest. The movie ends with Julie reuniting with her mother while police arrives to the cabin. We are then told about the real Julie in real life, which name is Laura. She was kidnapped, shot in the head and left to die. She lived. Her attacker remains in prison to this day. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and check out other movie summaries we have on our channel.